everyone, I am here with your astrology for the month of April of 2022. So let's get started. I'm going to give you all the headlines for the month, the new moon, the full moon. We have a solar eclipse coming up this month. We have planets changing signs. So I'm going to give you the whole scoop on the month of April. So I'm filming this today on April 2nd. And yesterday we started with a new moon in the sign of Aries. It was at 11 degrees of Aries. So if you have planets around 11 degrees in any of the signs, but especially if you have any in the fire signs or the cardinal signs, you'll probably have felt it more than others. Also, if you have a lot of Aries in your chart, you're obviously going to feel it more than others. And new moons are always a really great time to set intentions. So if you were watching this today on April 2nd when I put this up, or early into the week of the 3rd, you still have time to set some intentions or to do some new moon rituals, because that new moon energy is still there. We're still in the part where the moon is growing in the sky. So you can still set some intentions. Now, this new moon was a very healing new moon. It was conjunct with Mercury and also with Chiron. Actually, the sun was conjunct Mercury and Chiron today, but it did affect the new moon because they were very close together. It was also sextile, which is a harmonious aspect with Mars and Saturn. So what this means is Chiron's the wounded healer. So when the new moon is conjunct Chiron, this is a really great time to set some intentions for doing some healing work, some personal development, some growth. Having an easy aspect with Saturn and Mars, which are more difficult planets, means that we have an opportunity to use our energy, which is Mars, and Saturn, which is our organization, our restrictions, in a positive way to help us grow. So very healing aspect, great time to make some goals for personal development. So our next thing is on Monday, April 4th, we have Mars conjunct with Saturn. So conjunct means together, they're together in the sky. Mars is the planet of action and energy and desire and willpower, and also, of violence and aggression. And he's joining up with Saturn. And Saturn's a planet of rules and limitations. It's also about boundaries. It is about organization. It's about tradition and order. So one planet wants to go really fast and get things done. The other one's like, no, slow down. And a lot of people have compared this aspect to driving with the gas and the brake on at the same time. So it can be a time of a lot of frustration. It can be a time where we feel like we want to take action, but we're unable to, or we may feel like people are moving too fast and we want to stop it. So there is some frustrated energy around this time. Now, some astrologers have noted that the last few Mars and Saturn aspects, whether it's been Mars and Saturn together or Mars and Saturn in an opposition or even in a square to each other, have been times when it seems like there's new COVID variants emerging. So obviously I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we may see more information about new COVID variants emerging at this time. So I just wouldn't be surprised if that happens. There may also be a lot of frustration about rules and restrictions between both people who want more rules and restrictions and those who don't. So you may see some frustrations around this time. Especially because they're in Aquarius. And Aquarius is a sign of the community. It's a sign that rules. It's our collective. It's how we interact with each other on a collective level. So a lot of things around rules when it comes to community. You also may see rules and restrictions coming out around the internet, because the Aquarius is also about technology. And technology and community, that's social media, right? So you may see more rules and regulations coming out next week. Tuesday, April 5th, we have Venus changing signs into Pisces. So she's a lot happier in Pisces than she is in Aquarius. Venus in Aquarius, I have my Oracle of the Radiant Sun. I don't know why I can never remember that off the top of my head. But my Venus card for Aquarius, its keyword is detachment. And I would agree with that. There we go, detachment. Because Venus in Aquarius is very much about the avant-garde, the unusual. Venus is how we like to be romanced. It's love, it's beauty, it's art. And so it's very much about the avant-garde, the different, the unusual. And those with Venus in Aquarius placements in their chart are more likely to be attractive to people who stimulate their mind intellectually. Well, when it goes into Pisces, that's an interesting keyword there, submission. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that one, but it is an interesting one there. The Venus in Pisces is very much about fantasy. It is about idealism. It's romanticism. Venus in Pisces wants to be, they want to be wooed. They want romance. They want to be swept off their feet. You know, it's very much about like this romantic type of feeling, and it's very idealistic, which can be really beautiful and lovely. And Venus is getting away from Mars. So for a while, she's been kind of moving with Mars, and now she's speeding up and moving past him. And she's actually a lot happier this way. She's very much, feeling more in her sort of like optimistic type movement and not so besieged by, sort of aggressive energies. She's a lot more expressive. So you may find that artistically and creatively, you may find yourself just feeling a lot more expressive about things. You may have feeling more romantic with your current partner, or maybe wanting to go out and find a partner. So a lot of romantic energy coming into the month. So that's very exciting. Sunday, April 10th, we have Mercury moving into the sign of Taurus. So Mercury is about communication. It's how we speak. It's also about travel as well. And for a while, he's been in Aries. And it was interesting that Mercury moved into Aries the day of the Oscars. And of course, we all know what happened at the Oscars, the very famous slap that happened, which is a very Mercury in Aries. Like Mercury in Aries in its more negative aspect can be like aggressive communication. It can be, angry words. It can be a slap. Like it's aggressive, angry communication. And we may have seen more sort of fiery rhetoric, a lot more arguments going on, a lot more, even like just fiery type communication. And it's good if you're not very direct or you're shy, because it can make you more assertive. But if you're already assertive, you might push it a little farther. But that's going to change Sunday, April 10th. We're going into Taurus. Things slow down. They calm down a bit. People may be a little quieter, a little calmer about things. So Mercury in Aquarius, keyword here is restlessness. So that's a Mercury in Aquarius card. The second, for Taurus, we have resistance. I don't know, again, if I necessarily agree with that particular word. I would say that Mercury in Taurus is more cautious about what it says. Mercury in Taurus, we might slow down our communication. We may be, talking to people a little bit less. We may be thinking more about things. It may be a little more internal. We may take a while to respond to things, wanting to kind of slow things down. Also, I think that in general, because Taurus is ruled by Venus, our communication, instead of being ruled by fiery Mars, which is Aries, it tends to be like more harmonious. We want to kind of get along with people. We don't want to be so aggressive and assertive and in people's faces. So things kind of calm down after the 10th when it comes to communication. Tuesday, April 12th, we have Jupiter meeting up with Neptune in the sky. So these are both slower moving planets. Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the zodiac, and for Neptune, it takes 165 years. So it can take a while. So Jupiter and Neptune together in Pisces, this is a sign they both rule. They're both rulers of this sign. So they're very happy there, and they're together. So this is a very interesting aspect in that, on one hand, it can be a really harmonious aspect, because you think like Pisces is very romantic, it's very idealistic, it's all about fantasy, it's about oneness and spirituality. And Neptune's about those things too, and he's very at home there. But we also have Jupiter there, and Jupiter makes everything bigger. It expands things, it gives luck. So this can be a time of great optimism, of good news, just feeling very wonderful about things. It's a great time too for artwork, for film, for music, lots of, there may be some really great things coming out around this time. The thing is, though, that Neptune is also about, it's about fantasy, and it's also about delusion, and it's also about misinformation. It's about things we can't see clearly. It's about things that aren't, can be kind of murky. It's about pandemics like viruses. It's also about alcohol, drugs. Like, it has some negative aspects as well. And Jupiter can make those things bigger. So it can mean that there's more like conspiracy theories. It can mean that, there's a lot of hype around something, but not a lot of substance to it. So I think around this time, it's good to harness that optimistic type energy, but at the same time recognize that, not everything is very clear right now, that, there may be a lot of misinformation going on. There may be a lot of delusion about things. We're seeing this kind of in some of the COVID denial going on, or people not wanting to acknowledge the pandemic anymore, and getting worse in some places, and people not wanting to acknowledge that it's getting worse. The other interesting thing about this aspect, and again, I don't want to like fearmonger or anything, but it has been noted that this particular aspect of Jupiter conjunct Neptune happened with Chernobyl, and it happened with Bhopal, both of those disasters. So let's cross our fingers and hope nothing like that, but just, be aware that there may be some illusion and delusion going on, but use this energy, harness its optimistic energy and its creative energy to do some really great things. On Thursday, April 14th, we have Mars moving into the sign of Pisces. So Pisces isn't his favorite sign to be in because Mars is aggressive and fiery, and so being in a mutable water sign is probably not his favorite place to be. So he's going from Mars in Aquarius, which keyword is rebellion, to Mars in Pisces, which is escapism. So Mars in Pisces is kind of driven to escape into things. It's driven to escape into fantasy. It's driven to escape into, on a really negative scale, like alcohol, drugs, addiction, that kind of thing, which can be very Piscean. What this is good for is being driven to create things, being driven to put more romance in your life. So use this energy for the next 2 months in a really good way. Saturday, April 16th, we have a full moon at 26 degrees of Libra. Now, this full moon has a square to Pluto, and squares are more challenging aspects. So this full moon, we may be challenged to look at things like authority and power, and it has an opposition to Chiron. So there may be things that come up where we're like, oh, I thought I had dealt with this thing, this old wound, but I really haven't. There may be things that trigger us. There may be things in the news that upset us. So it's really asking us to look within on this full moon and look at where things still need to be healed in our lives. On Sunday, April 19th, we have the sun moving into the sign of Taurus, as it does at this time of year, as usual. So it goes from Aries into Taurus season. So sun in Aries, just looking here, keyword is assertion. I would agree with that. Definitely being more assertive, thinking more about what we want as individuals. When it goes into Taurus, interestingly, the keyword here is acquisition. So it is kind of about thinking about our values, thinking about what it is that we value in our lives, not just monetarily, but also on a personal level. It is a good time too to think about your finances, to think about money, to think about your property, to think about cleaning up your house, like things like that. So sun moves into Taurus at that time. Wednesday, April 20th, we have the asteroid Juno moving into the sign of Pisces, and this asteroid rules partnerships. So definitely there becomes a more romantic element to the partnerships that we have. On Friday, April 29th, we have Mercury moving into Gemini, which is a sign it rules. It's very Happian. So we go from kind of that Taurus kind of slowing down type energy into Gemini, which keyword here is excitement. So it's kind of like we have this calm period, and then it goes into Gemini, and we want to talk about things. We want to share ideas. We want to learn things. We want to communicate. We want to travel. We want to be with others. So the energy picks up on Friday the 29th. We also have Pluto going retrograde at 28 degrees of Capricorn. So he is slowly making his way through Capricorn. He's going to stop, and he's going to spend the next 6 months or so going retrograde. So he's going over some of the power dynamics. He's asking us to reassess these things. We may not really feel it in our lives unless we have aspects around 28 degrees, particularly in Capricorn. And then on Saturday, April 30th, we have a new moon, which is a solar eclipse at 10 degrees of Taurus, which I'm probably going to talk more about in next month's video, which I'll probably do at the end of April. But just be aware we're entering eclipse season, which is a time of endings and beginnings. It's a time where something's going to end and something new is going to begin. So an interesting month, lots of changing energy. I hope this is helpful to you. If you want more astrology, definitely check the links in my bio. I'm doing an astrology series on my Patreon if you're interested in that. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and peace and love and light.